Everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. I am your host, Rachel Cossar, and I'm thrilled to welcome Rebecca Rutschmann, who will be talking to us about some of the different ways that coaches can leverage AI to amplify their work. Without further ado, Rebecca, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on now.
So how much time do you have? No, all good. Yeah, I have a long story in IT and communications and worked my whole life in the IT industry. But I mainly founded an AI coaching startup 2019 and really digging into how can we create like coaches on a platform using AI that can help a lot more people out there than it used to be before. So like one of the triggers for me was that I worked with a lot of people in IT, young leaders, and they would all really be in urgent need of more reflection and of someone to talk to, but you can't give it to all of them. Yeah, if you talk about 400 people and I was the only trained coach, it's not going to happen. So we came up at some point then in 2019 with the idea of creating something that everybody could use kind of like every time. And then I ran a startup for 4 or 5 years. I'm a trained coach as well myself for more than 15 years. And so it's always been at my heart to combine all these things. And I'm now running for more than half a year the Viva La Coaching Academy, where we try to bring AI literacy into the coaching and learning world.
Amazing. Awesome. So let's dive right in. How or what are some of the ways, or maybe your favorite ways, that coaches can use AI to amplify their own coaching work?
My favorite ways. They have changed over time as well. My current favorite way is actually using it first to reflect on kind of like your own coaching and your coaching style. And I think that's where we kind of like connected on as well, and use an AI coach for self-reflecting on your last
Mhm.
coaching sessions and all this. So I've created Eliza last year as kind of like a little project, like to try for supervision and see how coaches can use that. Because as we always say, you should eat your own dog food first, yeah, before releasing anything to the clients. But then really what's really helpful, like to use it as a coach or in a coaching session or as a corporate, like with your employees, is really just like an onboarding and like really clarifying the topic for people, because a lot of people have many different topics or not yet really sure about their topic, but they feel an urgent need to talk about something.
Mhm.
I think that would be one of my favorite use cases as well, to get more clarity about what you really want before you enter an actual coaching relationship with a coach.
Right. Right. Interesting. So almost like a on both ends for the coaches to use, but then also the clients to use as like a precursor to the actual human to human interaction. Is that kind of right?
Yes, I mean, like you can of course use them as well for actual like coaching sessions for
Mhm.
self-reflection with an AI. I mean, they're not at the level where human coaching is, but that's something that you can always access, even at 2 o'clock in the morning if you just can't fall asleep and there's something you
Right.
need to talk through with something. Yeah, so and that's one of the use cases that people really appreciate the most, that their coach or they don't have a coach or their coach is not available, that they just have a conversation partner.
Right, totally. Yeah, the conversation partner piece is very powerful. Do you find that coaches are becoming more open to incorporating AI? Do you find that there's still a lot of fear around this?
I would say still both. While 4 or 5 years ago everybody would just like go like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. A lot of people are now curious to explore, and more people are actually working with it and seeing the potential. While there, I think, is still a lot of fear in the market and uncertainty and overwhelm, because as you know, working with these technologies, you get overwhelmed really fast. Yeah. So of course there is still, like a huge amount of people out there who don't really know yet how to navigate that. But the number of people who are working more and seeing the potential is getting bigger and bigger by actually the day and week. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. You mentioned this in answer to the previous question, but I'm just curious, like, can you give us some concrete examples of ways that AI can teach us about ourselves, like even just anecdotally from yourself and your own experience?
I mean, like there is ourselves as humans in the picture, so it can teach us a lot about what connection and presence and like the human factors in a conversation really bring to human connection with our clients. But then there's also the point where AI can really help us to better understand ourselves and then also improve on who we are, because like we see a lot of coaches really still not like or struggling with who am I as a coach.
Mhm,
Yeah. So why do people actually love being coached by me? Yeah. Or why are
mhm.
they coming back and actually trying to find out their personal value proposition is something that AI can really help you with and get more clarity also for yourself and what you actually bring. Yeah. And why, like what are the benefits, like why people would come back, to the coaching with you. Yeah.
Right, and because we had a really interesting webinar that you hosted, by the time this goes live, like a couple weeks ago. But something that you brought up, which I thought was a really interesting and strong point, is that like now that AI can meet certain coaching needs in the market, right? Certainly not at the same level as a human, but that need to really differentiate our coaching styles and our coaching voices um, is even more important, right? Because to be able to differentiate yourself, yes, from other coaches, but like also from like, here's why you should hire and spend more money on my coaching than like, a convenient AI version, right? Is because of X, Y, and Z,
Mhm.
right? And that's at the end of the day, I do think that that can be scary for a lot of people, but it is also going to help the quality of everyone's coaching and everyone's coaching experience grow.
Yeah, like it just means for the future that we have to work a lot on the coach education as well. Yeah, so to actually get coaches much faster from, let's say, a basic level coaching to actually using more and more tools, techniques, yeah, and within their coaching and really wrapping up their presence and just being with the client, because I think that's going to become more and more important, not throwing more tools at them. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can do that easily, but really, how can we just be there for them?
yeah,
Yeah, in
right.
our presence, in our human presence. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So that, at Virtual Sapiens, one of the big things that our AI does is will reflect behaviors back and specifically presence-oriented behaviors, right? So
Mhm.
having taken a few assessments on our platform, was there something that our AI taught you about yourself?
Hmm, good question. I actually love that it showed me that I use a lot of filler words,
Mm.
which I do, because I'm
Yeah,
also not a native speaker, so
right.
I have to do the extra thinking sometimes, and then there are these yeah. So I loved actually that because it pointed that out for me again. Um, and otherwise, I got a lot of like check marks, so I was actually happy about that.
Yeah, it
Actually
can be
confirmed
nice as a
me well on
validation.
a couple of things.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So I haven't really used it like in like for like an actual coaching session, just for role play. But what I really loved are the possibilities to just create a role play with maybe
Yeah,
some very challenging characters that leave you speechless. Yeah. So
yeah,
because when you coach a lot of high level or executive level clients, then they do sometimes come back with very interesting topics or just remarks, and you're kind of like, ooh, or they may be more, like demanding in other ways. So practicing that to really get more fluent
yeah,
in your coaching answers and, like how you reply or how you can then further challenge them. I think that's very helpful.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So what do you think? we need to be wary of when it comes to using AI, either to amplify coaching or just in general?
I mean, there are different topics that come to mind. That's why I'm kind of like thinking. One topic definitely is the current trend of creating the avatars that look like you. Yeah, where I can see, yeah, and that take on your personality, and what is that gonna do with you as the human coach? Yeah, if you have these clones. So that's something I'm actually thinking about quite a lot. What the personal identity means in the future of AI, because you can be easily copied. Yeah, so
Yeah,
we all know
right.
that, like working with these technologies. So, but how will that reflect back on how people perceive me personal, yeah, as a high quality coach at some points? And then also data compliance is a huge issue, not only because I'm in the EU, because I think the coaching industry and the conversations that we have, they need to be more protected in many
Mhm.
ways. I've just honestly, just before jumping on this call, I've been reading through some data compliance of a tool offered in the US for creating these AI avatar coaches. Um, and it creeps me out sometimes reading through the data compliance sheets,
Yeah.
um, of kind of like all the data that can be shared with government authorities, especially in a current situation that we have globally with different governments throughout the world.
Yeah.
Um, and you really have to watch out on like where the data in the end is being hosted, where the company is from, like what data is going to be released to who, and what will be processed and stored on servers and things like that. So there's a whole, because coaching conversations should be kept confidential.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and where does this confidentiality start and end? Yeah.
Mhm.
And how can we protect our clients? And I think that's a big topic we still need to discuss within the industry, because I
Right.
think AI can bring a lot of great things and impact, but we also need to have more ethical frameworks around
Mhm.
that, and
Mhm.
not only ethical, but also on how we build them. Yeah, so to have more safeguards. Yeah, like have the, if you just hop on ChatGPT, you can use an amazing prompt and then start a coaching conversation, but then how are you looked in? Like how are you going to share your data? What's going to happen if the conversation goes into, let's say, not aligned yeah, path?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the ChatGPT, of course, is not aligned to actually keep in the ethical framework of such, like conversations. Um, so yeah, there are a lot of topics around this
Right.
that needs to be considered.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that it's a quickly evolving landscape. One thing that we've noticed is we're like building the plane as we fly it in partnership with our clients. So our clients are also trying to figure out like their ethical AI boundaries and limitations and needs, right? And so that's certainly frustrating, I think, for everyone. But it's like such a necessary when we have to go through that to get to a point where we can know like what is required and what kind of safeguards we need to ensure are in place in order for the platform to be effective, because at the end of the day you want people to feel like they can show up in a safe space and be authentic and have those authentic conversations to get the value,
Yes.
right? um, Great.
I'm
So
always surprised on how much people really open up, even,
yes.
like in an AI conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sometimes they go really, really deep, and sometimes even deeper than they might maybe with a coach, but not all of them, just a certain amount of people. So it's interesting to see.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that had come up in the conversation we had the other day too, right? Of like us at Virtual Sapiens being surprised that people found it a little easier to experiment with the platform because they found that they weren't like being judged by a person, right? So
Yes.
it was easier to get some of this like personal feedback from the AI because they were like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like no one else is going to see this video and no one is going to see, so I mean, and that was certainly unexpected for us. Because I would have assumed prior to all of this data that people would have found the AI feedback cold, less warm, less encouraging or whatever, but that hasn't been the case, which is great. So going back to all of the work that you're doing in AI literacy and helping coaches really understand some of the options they have in Viva La Coaching and all that, what are some of the biggest learnings or aha moments that your clients experience when it comes to that work?
And with a little bit of guidance, they can actually do it. Yeah.
Right.
So we have a lot of them coming in and kind of like, oh, I think I really need to learn about this, but I've been really scared and I didn't know on how to and where to start. And then seeing their excitement. I mean, like, of course, like you're pushing the limits constantly that they have to also then overcome. But to see then one day them being like, oh gosh, I don't know how to do this. And then coming back a few days later and like, I cracked it. I did it. Like I now know how it works. And I now see all these things that I could maybe do. But then also thinking about further, so what does that mean? Because it kicks off a lot of thinking processes that you have to be prepared for. And AI literacy is one I find like, I think I just posted something also yesterday. It's one of the biggest, I find it, threats is that people do not educate themselves, no matter if they later on use it or not within their coaching, but it's about the education, about knowing what it is and how you could use it, and then make that informed decision on where and how and when to use it. Yeah, but if you don't know about it, then it's really difficult, to navigate that space. And I see that too many people will be left behind very soon. So that's why we actually started this, and we hope that we can excite more people and ignite that little spark, and just kind of like they even have to think about, how do I add something to my coaching contract? I mean, most of them use Zoom. There is AI in there as well. Even if they don't turn it on, somehow their data is being processed, and they don't sometimes even pick the right service that are according to their location laws and things like that. So there's a lot of topics to be covered, and we just try to help people navigate that and then feel more safe and provide also open spaces where people can share a lot of their thoughts as well. So I think that's actually very well received as well currently, that we just have sometimes just discussions about, so what does this do with you? Yeah. So how do you think that's going to change you and your business and your profession, and what are you worried about, and what can the community do to support you there? Yeah.
Right. And just so people understand a little more concretely, can you share more about the program and the format of it and how it all works?
So what we came up with was kind of like providing people first with the foundations of what actually AI is and why it has such, or will have such, a great influence on the coaching industry, because it's actually doing a lot of conversations. Yeah. So, and providing you or people with a lot of knowledge about that. And then we have something that we call the practitioner level. So where people can really explore different areas. And work through that in a community with their other, we call them rebels, yeah, in the course. And that's where the practical side happens, and that where a lot of the dot connecting happens as well, and where we create the real value. It's also an ICF accredited training, where we just really cover everything from ideation to using it for content generation, for creating insights, through note taking and your coaching sessions. That's where you guys would come in, and then also how to build your little kind of like AI coaching assistants on different platforms. So we just try to cover all these areas. And then for those that have passed that practitioner level, we now started to offer different master classes. So it's really like a 3-level kind of like literacy training that we do. And then we have the whole community, where we offer usually on a monthly base different like open spaces, prompting clinics, just community meetups where people can just like connect and share, some of their latest findings, and where we of course then celebrate new certificates and new graduates from the program. So
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think the community aspect of it, the safe space aspect of it, the educational aspect of it meet so many dire needs, certainly in the coaching industry, but I'm sure also beyond. So that's fantastic. How many people so far have gone through the program?
Oh gosh, I just did a whole other, I think it's around 20 now that have done the Rebel course. There are more that did the rookie course, and then we
Yeah,
already have a lot of graduates from the master classes.
amazing.
So I mean, like we only started last year, October, so we just
Yeah,
finished the second batch, the
right.
second cohort. The third one is coming out soon. And
Awesome.
the first one was, I think, 18 people. Not all of them are yet certified, and the second one was around 10 people
Yeah,
going through it, because we try to keep it small so we can all really work together.
yeah.
So we don't really have huge cohorts, but it's a
Mhm.
very close community then.
Yeah, that's awesome. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining and sharing your insights. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience today?
I mean, what I really always love to share is just go out there and explore and see, and don't be scared. I mean, it's like doing baby steps, yeah, one step after the next. And no matter how overwhelmed you will feel, I still feel overwhelmed. So, and I still keep on doing the next steps, yeah, that take me back. Because if you do one step every day, you're going to have 365 steps at the end of the year and learn so much more. So
Yeah,
just go out there and learn more.
wonderful. And what's the best way people can get in touch with you, follow your work?
I mean, I'm mostly on LinkedIn, so if you put in my name, you probably won't find anybody else. And I also write a newsletter, which I try to do bi-weekly. It doesn't always happen, but I just released the latest one. And then you can hop on vivalacoaching.com and learn more about what we're doing there.
Wonderful. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for sharing your insights and your time.
My
And
pleasure.
thank you to our community, as always, for joining. We'll see you next time.